Good evening, everyone. It's me again. It's Christopher, somebody, someone. It took me a while to put this video together, and it's something that's been on my heart for a while. And so I finally built up the confidence to create this second video and put it out there for you guys. Today's video's topic is identity. Identity and the thoughts from a former foster youth. And I say former foster youth, but I still feel like a foster kid because even as an adult, some of the effects and experiences that I've had as a foster child still linger with me, right? Things that I still deal with, like confidence. And so today, identity is a topic that's been near and dear to me because I've worked with youth and I've worked with foster youth. And some of the things that I've realized is it's difficult to know who you are when you have a foster care experience. And full disclaimer, not all foster youth have the same experience. Some individuals get wonderful families and they are developed, they are loved on, they are nurtured, and they have a caring environment that they're in. That's not the case for all youth. Another disclaimer, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. It's just something that is near and dear to me, and I feel like it's a conversation that needs to happen. I spend a lot of time on social media and YouTube, and one of the things that I haven't seen is someone talking to those who have a foster care experience and what that looks like and some of the challenges that comes with being a foster youth. And so I just wanted to lend my voice with the hopes of at least contributing to this conversation and having future conversations about this population and about my experiences. So let's first just start off by defining what identity is. And Webster says the definition is distinguishing characteristics or personality. That's pretty loaded, right? Distinguishing characteristics or personality. That's how we identify. That's how we identify ourselves, and that's what we're known for, those distinguishing characteristics and personality. It's good to note at this point that, our parents are the initial stakeholders that help us to identify who we are, identify what our values are, helps us to role model those distinguishing characteristics, helps us to solidify our personality so that we are confident in that personality, right? So before we get in a little further, I think it's for those who may not understand the experience foster youth have, or those who are just interested. I pulled up some stats, and I think these stats are really important because it helps us to understand why identity is so important and why the construction of identity is so important. So first, the median age a youth actually comes into the foster care system is 6 years old. I was kidnapped at 6 years old by my biological mom from a foster home. And so that number really stood out to me. You're entering into a system that you have no knowledge of, right? And sometimes we're engaged in the foster care system and no doing to our own, right? Someone knocks at our door or something happens, something was reported, and we're taken away from that environment. So just keep that in mind. 6 years old, they're entering into the foster care system. It's the average age. 8 out of 1,000 youth in foster care experience some form of abuse or neglect. Trauma is huge, right? Trauma, if unchecked or if you haven't developed the coping skills or overcame that trauma, it begins to influence how you view yourself. It begins to influence how you view others around you, especially if that abuse or trauma or neglect has come at the hands of a mother or father or a guardian. 22,971 children in foster care are in the system for 5 years or more. I can recall being taken from my biological mom when I was born, and I was emancipated at the age of 18. So pretty much spent my entire life, but 22,971 children in the foster care system for 5 years or more. I can relate to that number. This is another interesting stat. 20,000 children between the ages of 18 and 21 years old age out of the system early. And that's an annual number, 20,000 annually. And so we got 20,000 young individuals who are exiting the foster care system and going into real life. And they may have some unresolved, undiagnosed, unaddressed trauma. They're going into the world with this. And you still may not have a full sense of your identity because of the trauma, but that's 20,000 kids. And that number is going to be more important when we start talking about the other variables that those individuals contribute to. Foster care students are less likely to graduate from high school. So the cohort of foster kids, 55% of individuals or youth in foster care graduate high school. Compared to those who are not in foster care, that number jumps up to 87.3%. Only 21% of urban and 5% of rural foster youth have access to a computer at home. It's a significant number because especially just look at the pandemic, right? We had kids doing remote learning for up to 2 years. And if you're a youth living in foster care, 21% of them in urban environments don't have access to a laptop or to a tablet, 5% in rural environments. High school dropout rates are 3 times higher for foster youth than any other low-income children. Foster youth get suspended and expelled from school 3 times more than any other child group. Foster kids' success rate in meeting mathematical, science, and English standards are less than half the rate of other children. Pretty significant stat right here. This was kind of heartbreaking, but it also underscores the importance of having this conversation about identity. 1 in 4 foster youth shows signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. 1 in 4. That's pretty significant. 1 in 4 youth. And again, let's go back to that 20,000 number. And the stats show that upwards to 462,000 youth enter the foster care system annually across this country. 6 out of 10 boys aged out of the foster care system are convicted of a crime. 50% of youth in foster care who age out of the system have no income within their first year. 50% after aging out of the foster care system have no income within their first year. And of those who actually get a job, their annual income is $7,500. $7,500. I can't live off $7,500. And just think of the challenges that individuals face in that. Between 2% and 10% of foster care youth who actually graduate high school actually obtain a bachelor's degree. I would like to say that I'm blessed. I've actually obtained my bachelor's degree and my master's degree based on some of the things that I want to share with you guys today. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of share those stats because it helps paint a snapshot. Again, not indicative of all foster youth experience, but a lot of foster youth are actually having the same experience. And so let's talk about the foster care experience. My experience, as I stated earlier, I was with a traditional foster care family. I had a male and female role model, very religious, took us to church, kept us engaged in the community. Then one day I was kidnapped. I was taken to a totally different state. Authorities finally apprehended my mom and her boyfriend and the other accomplice, and I was with my biological brother. Took us back to my home state of Indianapolis, Indiana. And I was put in a group home. And then from there, I was put into a foster home where I stayed from the time I was 7 years old until I was emancipated at the age of 18. So much had happened to me, right? Mind you, while I was kidnapped and we were taken to West Virginia from Indianapolis, how law enforcement found us because my mom accused her boyfriend of molesting me. Very traumatic for a 6-year-old. To be physically checked by your mom because she suspected that you were molested. And then you're taken from that environment and you're put into a totally different environment. I still had to be a kid, right? I still had to go play. I still had to get up and go to school. I still had to interact with my peers, all with this trauma and all this uncertainty still in my mind, still wrestling with me still trying to make sense of that in my 6 and 7-year-old mind. That's a tall order for any child. A tall order for any child. And that's why I created this channel, because someone is so important, because I would not be who I am today if it wasn't for individuals who saw potential in me, who role modeled those characteristics and those personalities that I wanted to embody for myself. And being in the foster care experience, there is a level of unknowing that you have to live with. When I volunteered as a CASA worker, and some of these kids used to live out of book bags and trash bags because they didn't know how long they were going to stay in the residence. They had some unresolved trauma, undiagnosed trauma, and it acted out, we call behavioral issues, right? And one thing I learned, behavior communicates. It may not be effective communication, but all behavior is communicating something to us. And those who working with foster youth, whether you're in the schools, whether you're a case manager, a CASA worker, or a judge, you need to understand the behaviors. It benefits us to understand the trauma and how trauma can communicate to us versus just labeling it a behavioral issue. But again, there's just a sense of unknowing as to what is going to happen. How long will I be in this placement? What would the next placement be like? What would the kids be like at this school? What would the kids be like in this community? Then you have to navigate the social aspect of being a kid in foster care. I can recall being ridiculed because I didn't have parents. I was ridiculed by my peers in my neighborhood and at my schools because I couldn't afford, the family I was with couldn't afford to dress me how everyone was dressing. I couldn't do what everybody else was doing. I didn't have the resources and the knowledge to, or the confidence to step out of my comfort zone. All of those things help shape identity in the foster care experience. And it's not easy, man. There are challenges to building yourself up. It's challenges in creating a healthy self-identity and having a great sense of self-esteem. It took me a while to put this video out, y'all, and I just want to be fully transparent because I lacked the confidence. I didn't think that any of you guys would want to hear from a kid who was raised in foster care and now he's a man and started his own family. I didn't have value in it because I didn't see value. Value wasn't instilled that I was someone who had something to offer. And so I had to psych myself out and convince myself to put out the second video. And it's taken over a month. And I do apologize because I know that I strongly believe in my heart of hearts that there's a need for this video. And that's why I am taking a chance on being vulnerable and being transparent with my life, with the hopes that those who are out there watching this video can relate. Those who work with the youth can learn some tips on how to better serve this population. Because if you look at the stats, there's a huge need there. There's a huge need there. And going back to, that identity and that sense of self-esteem, it's difficult when, the individuals who brought you into this world, right, and your mother and your father, who are, again, supposed to role model and help you identify those distinguishing characteristics in their personality. It's difficult when you don't have that and you're constantly being put in different placement by individuals who say they have your best interests, who you really don't know from a can of paint. That's difficult. It's difficult to find that it's difficult to be proud of the uniqueness within yourself because you really don't see the uniqueness or finding those qualities in the things that you do well. It's difficult because growing up for me, I don't feel like I had the time to look at the things that made me unique. Because I'm worried about so many different things, so many different variables that, again, I didn't have control over. So we got to get to the nucleus of it all and really addressing some of that mental, physical, and emotional trauma that youth in foster care may have experienced. And not just looking at them as someone else. And again, I think it's unfair and it's unkind to ask a foster child, who are you? Not understanding everything that they've been through. Not understanding that question. It's tough to answer when you are struggling to even understand who you are and how you are because your life is so out of your control. It's in everyone else's hands, and it's just a difficult order to ask. And so for those individuals working with youth, I would encourage you to invest in some trauma training. I recently had the opportunity to go through some trauma training, and it was phenomenal. And just sitting in the training, a lot of my life made sense to me. I understood some things about myself. And some of the characteristics that I embody really wasn't who I wanted to be, and I understood why I was embodying or exhibiting those type of behaviors or establishing those type of relationships. Because when you grow up as a foster child, in some cases, again, not all, you have so many voids, and you try to find different people and different things to fill that void, whether it be, being promiscuous because you have a longingness to feel loved and a longingness to feel close to someone, or you don't know how to deal with the trauma mentally. And so you may self-medicate to kind of numb yourself from those pain that you've experienced as a child that still lingers with you well into adulthood. And so, again, for those working with youth, just understanding that, man. And so want to speak to the youth directly. Some things that I encourage you to do to help. I don't want you to be where I am. I want you to be better than I am. I want you to stand on the shoulders of giants and see the world for what it really is and to see yourself for who you can truly be. So these are just some encouragement things that has lended itself to me becoming who I am and my desire to become someone. One, I would actively participate in creating the identity you want for yourself. Growing up, I used to get into the mirror, stand in front of the mirror right before school, because I knew the joning, I knew the jokes and the verbal attacks that I would be subject to. I knew that people would talk about my dress. They talk about my gap. They talk about the fact that I couldn't keep my hair cut. Maybe that's why I'm bald now. But I knew what I was up against. And so I would get up in the morning as I was getting dressed, and I would look in the mirror in the bathroom, and I would just tell myself, you are not your environment. You are not what's happening to you. You are not what has happened to you. And I would just say that over and over every morning. And it gave me a sense of hope. And that hope is what gave me a sense of, I can do this. I can overcome this. And that sense of hope inspired me. And that inspiration led me to making decisions that otherwise I wouldn't have made if it was just influenced by the trauma and things that have happened to me up until that point in my life. So I encourage you to list those characteristics, list those values, list those mannerisms. I used to look at people and how they dressed. I was like, oh, I would like to dress like that one day. Oh, I like how he introduced himself. Oh, I just like how he made me feel in his presence. He listened to me. And so I wanted to embody all of those characteristics because there were some ones in my life that I learned from. I don't know if they were actively aware that I was, trying to mimic some of the things that they were doing, but I did. And that's what helped me to become who I am today. And by doing that, I want you to write out those characteristics, write out those values, write out the personality you want, and I want you to practice it. Because there's a false assumption that practice makes perfect. No, practice makes improvements. If you continue to treat people how you want to be treated, if you want to be articulate, practice being articulate. I used to learn words my freshman year of college because I wanted to be articulate because I had a professor who was so articulate. And I was just in awe of his ability to communicate and express himself in a variety of ways. And that was something I always wanted to embody. So let's find out what those characteristics are. Yes, we didn't have our parents role modeling those to us, but there's individuals in your life. There's someone's in your life that is doing that, and you can ask them. And that goes to the next one. Ask for mentorship. Ask for someone to help. And that's a tall order, I know, because being a foster care youth, trust is a tall order. So much has happened to us. So much has been taken from us. So much has been done that to trust another adult is it's almost impossible. But that trusting is when we begin to heal. We can't heal on our own. We can't carry those wounds and those scars and those baggage and hold them to our chest because it becomes a weight and it robs us of who we are. It robs us of our authentic self. It robs us of us living the best version of ourselves. So finding that trusting adult, I had basketball coaches that I used to ask for help, counselors I used to just want to sit and talk to and figure out why they did what they did and how they got where they were. There's some individuals in your life, and it's difficult because times, that trauma have us looking at life like this. And so we need to remove that trauma so we can see life clearly, and then we can look at the opportunities that are readily available for us. Now, like I said, I know that's a tall order to ask because some of the challenges with even stepping out of that comfort zone, we got to get to the trauma, right? We got to heal. So that's the first challenge that we have to overcome. We got to heal. We got to find someone who we can talk to and help us process the trauma and come up with coping skills so that we can begin to overcome the trauma. Trauma, just resting unaddressed, it becomes a part of our identity. And that is a negative part of our identity that creates 20,000 youth leaving the foster care system without having a plan, without having resources in place, without knowing who they are. It leads to them engaging with the criminal justice system and making bad decisions. It leads to poverty rate and a homelessness rate and things of that nature. So we got to find those individuals that can help us heal our trauma so that we can begin to live the best version of ourselves. We also got to work on our self-esteem. And again, that's something at 45 I still struggle with because I didn't have any individual in my crucial developmental stages pointing out who I was, helping me identify who I could be, and helping me hone and develop the skills that I already had, that I didn't know I had, that I had to discover later into my adult life. And so we got to get that self-esteem. And we have to address the lack of trust that we may have with individuals. That lack of trust becomes a prison because we think that at the end of the day, the only person that we can rely on and the only person that's going to be there for us is us. But if we are dealing with trauma, we're dealing with this lack of identity, this lack of esteem, we are not better serving ourselves because we're half of who we could be, right? And I want you to be the best version of yourself, not the version that I want. I want you to be the best version that you want for yourself. And so we got to get those trust and abandonment issues addressed. And once we do that, we'll start feeling confident about ourselves. We start feeling confident in the decisions that we make. We start feeling confident in the relationships that we establish. We start feeling confident in the impact that we can make on the world. So my approach, again, I want to recommend all you, let's get to healing, man. It only starts when we're healing. I was put in front of a therapist after we were kidnapped and brought back to Indianapolis, and the sexual assault allegations were there. And so I was seeing a therapist, a man I knew nothing about, a man that I believe knew nothing about me. And I'm asked to be fully honest and open with an individual I don't know. That's a tough order. It's a tough order. But I wish I knew what I know now. I wish I would have taken advantage of those opportunities to have those conversations so that I wouldn't be struggling with some of the same trauma that I experienced as a child as an adult. We got to do the things that we know we need to do. So we got to heal and we got to do. We got to get out there and actively participate in our life. We can't continue just to be a bystander and think that life is happening for us. Watching the video, and JC said it so eloquently. He said life isn't happening to us, it's happening for us. And that's a very mature and hindsight mindset to have. It's not happening to us, it's happening for us. And once I adopted that philosophy, I was more willing to participate in this thing we call life. Last approach, we got to ask for help. We gotta find those talking heads and those adults in our life that we feel really genuinely have our best interests at heart. And we got to ask them some honest questions that we know that will help our life. I've had several of those individuals in high school, several of those individuals in college, even in my adult life. I have individuals that I rely on that are my sounding board because I know I'm still dealing with and working through trauma. And I know individuals who genuinely care about my overall well-being and best interest. And so I rely and reach out to those people. So my last approach is, my last recommendation to the youth is just follow through, right? Let's get engaged in the process because, again, life is not happening to us, it's happening for us. Get engaged in that process. I know going to court, different caseworkers and social workers, we may kind of just blow them off and dismiss them, but see what that individual can help you with, right? Get engaged in the process, knowing what is readily available to you so that if you are between that 18 and 21, you're thinking about aging out, you're just tired of the system, you've had 30 case managers that you don't feel like the judge is listening to you, your counselor's not listening to you, get engaged in that process so that we at least have a plan of action before we just exit that process. Because what happens is we don't have a plan, we go out to the real world. The real world is relentless. It really doesn't care what your experience is or what your experience has been up until that point. It wants you to perform. And if you don't perform, life has a tendency to chew you up. Definitely has a tendency to chew you up. So get engaged in the process, figuring out what resources are available. And in that process, find your voice. I am just now learning to find my voice, and that's why I'm making this video, because I feel like I have something to say to you all, and I hope that it's beneficial and something that can help you to overcome wherever you are in life as a foster youth, and help those who work with foster youth understand some of the challenges that the kid on their caseload may be coming through them with. Find your voice because it's important, because I went through my experience for a reason, and I believe that my reason is to share with you all some of the things that I've overcome, how I overcame them, so that you can be someone. That's the only way that we're going to make it. As a foster kid, that's the only reason I am who I am, someone. Someone taught me that I'm okay. Someone taught me that I'm enough. Someone taught me that if I put forth the best effort, I can be pleased with the results. Someone taught me that I am handsome. Someone taught me that I am okay. And those things, I just remember all the conversations I've had with individuals. Those were my someone. And my life up until this point is it's just been a combination of those who poured into me. Lastly, but not least, educate yourself. I didn't know until I was an adult all the resources that are readily available to youth in foster care. But again, if your case manager is changing every 6 months, every 2 weeks, you may not even get to that point to having some of those poignant conversations about what resources are available, what things that are out there that can help you. I've worked with foster youth, and so I'm fully aware of, some of the Chafee program funding and the things they have set up for helping you to get in, set up for independent living, helping you to establish a bank account, helping you to prepare for job interviews, helping you to get, your FAFSA filled out if you're interested in going to college, helping you to get engaged with community resources. If you want to need a prom dress or a tuxedo for the prom, there's resources out there. As a kid, I had no knowledge of any of those things. I'm not sure they probably existed, but I do know they exist now. And I encourage every foster youth to get engaged with those resources, because those resources is going to help you to overcome some of the financial deficits that our situation may have placed us into. Again, not every foster kid is living in poverty. There's a lot that are. And so these resources help you, and it helps you to kind of even the playing field with your peers who are not in foster care, because you have access to some of those things. And so those resources are readily available. And I encourage you to get engaged in the process and educate yourself on those resources. Share with your case manager or your CASA worker or even to the judge what your goals and dreams are, and help them and allow them to help you accomplish those dreams, okay? Because I didn't get where I am by myself, by any stretch of the imagination. I got there because there were someones in my life that really believed and saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I couldn't see it because I'm dealing with trauma. I'm dealing with identity issues. I'm dealing with self-esteem issues. But there was individuals out there who saw that in me, and I thank them for their time. And I'm gonna keep finding the courage to keep making these videos. I hope they've been useful. I hope it's been helpful. If there's something you would like to learn about me and my journey, please put it in the comments. If you want to see me talk about a different topic within this realm, please put it in the comments, and I'll do the research and I'll put it together, and I'm gonna keep the confidence going so I can make you guys another video, because I want to give of myself so that you will have somebody. All right, you guys have a good one. Thanks.